said, how big a risk was that? And he said, if you knew what a big risk is, you wouldn't have done it.
Really? Just because you lose, like, something goes bad, and
You have one
kind
bad
of
event.
spiral
You have
down,
one.
yeah.
You have one bad press interview.
And you've committed to the next.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to thank everyone for coming. Before we get into remarks and introductions, we are live streaming this on Facebook, and so I think we all handed out cards. If you want to scan that card and send the link to any friends with the QR code, you can let them tune in right into this event. My name is Jeff Bartos. Where is my wife Sheryl? I want to thank her because none of this happens without her, so she'll come out and I'll embarrass her. But my name is Jeff Bartos, a 20-plus year resident of Lower Merion Township, the proud husband of Sheryl Bartos, who ran for school board in 2007 in Lower Merion, the first Bartos to run for office, and I'll dare I say a better candidate than her husband. But this is an amazing turnout, and we just completed 3,700 miles around the Commonwealth, 67 counties in 12 days on a bus tour. We're privileged to have our 4 great judicial candidates. I know our chairman, Lawrence Tabus, will mention a little about what he's seeing on the judicials. But we had all 4 of our candidates campaigning with us, our statewide judicials. We had 2 of them on the bus with us for multiple days. The enthusiasm that we're seeing around the entire Commonwealth, all 67 counties, and I can say that because I've stepped foot in all of them in the last month, all 67 counties, the enthusiasm we are seeing are for judicial candidates and for school board candidates. And I know Clarice is here, and I know Dr. Fishbein is here, and they can definitely talk to you individually about what they're seeing. They have a national and a statewide view on what we're seeing with our school board candidates. The energy for our school board candidates is thrilling. What we saw in May is, Lizzie, I've never seen that type of turnout in a school board election year in a primary, and Liz will talk about that a little, I'm sure. Amazing. And so we got the right message. We definitely have the right candidates, and we'll talk about that, and we'll be introducing them. So thank you so much for coming out. This is a huge, successful event, thanks to all of you. And with that, I want to introduce not only the chair of the Montgomery County Republican Committee, but a 20-plus year friend, someone I have done a lot of political work with over the years. She chaired my lieutenant governor campaign in 2018. She is a sister to me. I like to remind her she's an older sister. Slightly, but she looks younger. But Lizzie is a brilliant political mind, a dear friend, and someone that we all look up to. And proud to introduce Liz Priate-Havey, our chair here in Montgomery County.
That's so nice. Put this down. Bill, should I be looking this way? Okay. All right, everybody. It's so nice to see you. I will keep this super short. I was tasked with talking about mail-in ballots, but I want to start by saying, if you didn't know, we had the best turnout we've had in over a decade in this past primary, both in general. In primary elections, we have not been able to match Democratic turnout. We went back 20 years to see if turnout by Republicans had been this high, and it hadn't been in 20 years. And we haven't matched the Democrats in a decade in either the general or the primary. So there's definitely something going on finally on our side in the Southeast. And I think you're right, it's about the schools. It was also about the amendments because people don't want to have shutdowns. But we're feeling it. I feel it all over the place. We had a picnic on Sunday. We had to move it from Saturday to Sunday at the last minute, and yet we still had 300 people, which was 50 more people who had RSVP'd, and we ran out of food. Apologize if you were there. Christian Nascimento, by the way, is here, and he is running for Congress in Montgomery County. Welcome. He just announced. So I'm really excited about where we are in Montgomery County. We've got a great event, and I'm just looking over here at Scott Beaumont. I want to tell everybody, it is sold out, but if you called, we could probably squeeze in a few. Scott is the brains behind the international company Lilly Pulitzer, and he's agreed to come and tell us about his rags to riches story and what he's doing with the charter school that he started in Chester, nonprofit. And we are having muffins and mimosas on September 19th with Scott. So if you want to come, please see me before you leave. We'd love to have you, but we are sold out, so I only come to me tonight. About mail-in ballots. So listen, I know there's a lot of controversy about mail-in ballots, but we're going to be living with them for the next few years. Until we replace this governor, he's going to block every single thing that we try to do to put in reasonable precautions so that votes aren't stolen. He's just going to do it. But if you vote by mail, if we can do what the Democrats have done, which is to have low turnout voters come out who aren't going to go to the polls but will drop a mail-in ballot, we are encouraging them to do it. And one of the things that we're asking people to do is to let us know that you voted by mail, because we can track the system. And I can't tell you how many times our office called directly to the county voter services to say, why is this person's ballot not registered in the SURE system? If you call us, if you're concerned and you call us, we will drive over to the county and figure out what's going on. So we have an executive director, we have volunteers, we have somebody that's working from the RNC in our office. So we are here to try to make sure that those votes are protected. So I ask you, if you know somebody who's not going to come out, that you do ask them to vote by mail and to let us know. We're easy to find. Montgomery County Republican Committee, you put that into the internet, and our phone number and our email will all pop up. So I'm telling people, and I know it's tough and it's controversial for some, but if you're not going to go to vote in person, then you have to vote by mail if we're going to compete with the Democrats. So that's where we are. Bill, what's the next? Who am I passing this off to?
Me.
Oh, and to my dear friend Jeff. Oh my gosh, where's our Township Commissioner Scott Zelf? There he is. Thank you for coming, Scott. Holding up the flag. Great to see you. I'm going to pass it back to our wonderful host and dear friend, Jeff. Co-host. Okay, there you go.
So before I hand this over to our state chairman, I just want to, she does not like when I do this, but I never get the chance to do this. I just want to thank Sheryl, who made all this happen. And please, please come back in the house and drink and eat, because we have lots of wine, lots of beer, lots of food. So please, please, please come back out. Please come in. Lawrence Tabus. Lawrence, it's a real honor to have you here at our home. Lawrence is a former school board director here in Lower Merion Township. In 2017, when I started running statewide for the first time, Lawrence was one of the first calls I made. Brilliant strategist, brilliant mentor, friend, advisor, someone who really took the time for a new candidate to really kind of show me the ropes, and spent hours on the phone in those early days just giving me the ropes on the state and teaching me about the state. And I still use a lot of that today, especially in Armstrong County and other places that you told me about. So, we are so fortunate to have a state party chairman who not only knows the intricacies of how to run campaigns and how to make sure we win, even when people try to take stuff from us, but also has 30 years plus of people who have looked up to and come to him for advice, and a whole bench of elected officials and county officials and grassroots leaders around the Commonwealth who rely on his counsel, his advice, his leadership. And Lawrence, it really is. It's an honor and a real privilege to have you here at our home. Thank you for being here. And with that, Lawrence Tabus, the chairman of the Republican Party of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Jeff. So I didn't know we were being televised, so I'm going to have to be careful in my remarks. First of all, Jeff, could you repeat everything you said to my children? They have a slightly different view of things on many occasions. First, I want to definitely thank you, Jeff, and Sheryl for hosting this. As Jeff mentioned, I served on the Lower Merion School Board 1997 to 2001. We actually swept and won all 4 seats at that time. The Democrats still had a majority, but we were a very aggressive vocal group. And Jill Godberg, my colleague, eventually became the Republican president of the school board. Also, Liz Priet, great to see her here today. She's been a terrific friend and supporter for a long time. She mentioned about the turnout, and she's right. We went back 20 years, and the Republican primary turnout this past May 18th was double our average. We usually do 465 to 550,000 in a Republican municipal primary. We almost hit 1.1 million. The Department of State claims we actually got more votes than the Democrats in the primary. We shocked the governor on the amendments. He was stunned. He called Jay Corman and Brian Cutler the next morning and said, I just can't believe it that you all won, and it was because of turnout and excitement. But here is the secret, and that's why I'm so glad to be here today, because this is school board races is something that, even though I'm the statewide chair, I'm supporting throughout the state. I went back because I don't, as a matter of principle, I don't sleep between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. I think that's a waste of time to be sleeping then. Of course, I don't sleep before or after that. But so the last month or so, I've been looking at the results from every school district race in the primary. And in almost 80% in the Republican primary, the votes for the school board candidates were ahead of the votes for our statewide judicial candidates. The public is focused on the schools. This is one of the most important single issues that crosses not just Republicans, but Democrats and independents. The Senator Scott from Florida called me last week with a new poll result. 70% of all voters nationally believe that the schools need to be completely reworked with people who are dedicated to making education focus on education and not extraneous issues. If we're going to win for our judges, if we're going to win for Scott Zelov and others, we have to come out for the school board candidates. I'm happy to see Chris is here, going to run for Congress. He's a great guy. I'm glad to see that he'll do that next year. But even for next year, in the governor's race, and the U.S. Senate race, and for Congress and the legislature, what we do this year at this local level will determine if we can win next year. And the Democrats are afraid of that. So I am proud that you're here. I also want to tell you we have 4 phenomenal candidates for judge statewide. We have Kevin Brobson, who is the current president judge of Commonwealth Court. He's willing to give that powerful position up to run for the state Supreme Court. We have Megan Sullivan from Chester County, an assistant district attorney. We have Stacy Wallace from McKean County, which I got to tell you is closer to Buffalo than it is Pittsburgh, actually, who's running for Commonwealth Court. And we have an incumbent judge, Drew Crompton, who is also running for Commonwealth. These are 4 outstanding candidates. And they're not going to go on that court and just be political and say, oh, we're Republican judges, so we're going to vote Republican. They're going to go on that court and behave like judges behave, not like a legislature. They know their job is to apply the law to the facts and not to legislate from the bench. I want to touch on then briefly, I'll end with Liz's pitch on the mail-in. It's a kind of a sensitive subject in our state and in our party. I'm here in Lower Merion, and as I said, until about 8 years ago, we lived in Penn Valley. Look, we have 2 legal means of voting in Pennsylvania right now. Whether you like it or not, it is legal to vote by mail and legal to vote in person. And shame on us if we let the Democrats take advantage and beat us because we're standing on a principle that will result in defeat. The best way to get rid of a mail-in ballot system that is inequitable, that is unfair, that is structurally defective, is to use it to beat itself. Use it, win the races next year, get a governor, and then we can adopt a law that makes sense and is fair and equitable. But for us to go into this election with one hand tied behind our backs, and also, we're smarter than the Democrats. If there are any here, by the way. We're smarter than all the Democrats except for those that are here today. But if we can't get that done and figure out the best way to get the ballots to those in our party who can't get to the polls, who are nervous about the current health conditions that are out there or have other reasons why they can't get to the polls or work-related, well, come on, by all means. Let's show the Democrats that we'll take their tool that they put in place to beat us, and we'll use it to beat them. So I have to support what Liz said on that. Anyway, thank you so much for having me out here today. Again, school board race is soon. Bill Hillman, by the way, I should acknowledge, has been a very close, wonderful friend. The best, he usually calls me and warns me in advance when I'm about to be attacked. Last week, though, he was about an hour and a half after the attack started. And he calls, and I said, Bill, it's already, but he's been a wonderful resource, a valuable advisor and friend, and I'm very glad that he's here today. And edit out anything I said in here that's not going to make me look like, Gregory Peck or something like that. It's already out there. Anyway, thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you.
Briefly, before I introduce the school board candidates, what the chairman said is so important. In our campaign, we have our political team, our campaign manager, others, we've been volunteering. We went up for a special election in May for the state senator up in Scranton. It's not just talk. We're following the chairman's lead. We're following his direction. We are absolutely fully committed to what he is saying, which is for myself as a 2022 candidate for the United States Senate, for other people running for governor, I'm doing everything I can. Our campaign is doing everything we can to help the judicial candidates, to help like we did in the special election up in Scranton for the state Senate, and of course to help our school board candidates. And so I don't know if Clarice is going to talk later or not. I don't know if that's on the program. But before everyone leaves, you should absolutely talk to Clarice. You should absolutely talk to Dr. Fishbein about their work, because how important the school board is here in Lower Merion. They're doing that work on a statewide and a national basis, and it's really inspiring. And it makes candidates like me, who spend our days doing other things, you inspire us to do what we're doing, and you make sure that we keep our eyes on what's so important here at the local level. So thank you for that leadership. And with that, I want to call up the three candidates who are here, because you all came to see them. So let me call up Christina, because I know Christina. Let me call up Travis, and let me call up Brendan. Real briefly, and I'll turn over the mic. Sheryl ran for school board in 2007 as a mom, a speech pathologist, just trying to do the right thing. And that was really at sort of the outset of the partisanship that we now see kind of running rampant in our politics. Sincerely, as someone who's put his name on the ballot before and again, and has a spouse who's put her name on the ballot, it is not easy. Thank you for stepping up. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for putting yourselves and your families out there right in front. And thank you for fighting for all of us, because if we don't get this indoctrination in the school boards, in the school districts right, if we don't fix this issue, then whatever I do in the Senate doesn't really matter, doesn't amount to a hill of beans, to quote Casablanca. It doesn't matter, because we will not be able to push the issues forward that we know bring prosperity and hope and freedom and liberty to our fellow Americans, our fellow Pennsylvanians. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I'm going to shut up and turn over the microphone. I'm going to go to Christina first.
All right. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you so much for thinking about education. You know, education is freedom. Like when you talk about America, education is freedom. It's freedom of thought. And so when you talk about education, it has to be that you need to educate the child fully. And so I'm extremely focused on what I call a 360-degree education. There are a lot of thinkers, there are a lot of thoughts, there are a lot of concepts that Americans, in terms of our diversity, puts out there, and we need to be able to educate our children on the full circle of them. So I'm actually a person that says if you're going to teach something such as critical race theory, you better be also teaching the other diverse authors and scholars that say they don't agree with that. Let's teach our children the entire broad spectrum of thought on each topic, and then they can then choose to go forward in their own life in a meaningful way. So I'm not going to speak too long, but I'm excited. I think the key is educating our voters, getting our parents to start thinking. Parents, it is not a done deal. What you think might be going on in our schools is not going on in our schools. What you think you know your children are reading, they're not reading. And we actually have a narrowing of our education, not an expansion. So I want to really to work with that. And so that's my focus. I love children. I love people. Our children are our greatest asset in the United States, and we need to keep them thriving and thinking. And I believe that's what our duty is as parents and as citizens. So with that, I will pass the mic to Travis. Thanks for being one of my parents.
All right. Thanks again to everyone who came out tonight, and thanks again to the Bartoses for hosting us. I've enjoyed over the past few months since the primary, Christina and Brendan and I have got together and we've talked a lot about what we think and what we believe and what we'd like to make the focus of our platform and our campaign. I know some of that's on the website, so I thought I just wanted to tell a brief story about kind of what motivated me to get involved. I've not really been involved in politics before now. I've been living in the district for the last 20 years, and we've educated two children through the public schools here. And we were really motivated to move here when we did. We could have gone to really anywhere in southeastern Pennsylvania, but we chose here because of the reputation of the schools as being one of the top districts in the state and national, really. Unfortunately, I think the district has kind of lost its way a little bit. The rankings are not what they were 20 years ago. And I think that's because we've lost our focus fiscally and in the curriculum. And we can talk academically about a lot of things that are in the news, critical race theory and diversity inclusion concepts, but they impact our students in a real way, and I think that's really what we got to remember whenever we're making decisions. And it impacted my daughter in a real way. She, in the end of her junior year in May, she had received a gift from her parents. This was kind of in the height of COVID. So she posted a photograph of her with her gift on social media, and she didn't think anything of it. She didn't think that would be a problem, and she never expected what came, which was about 50 following posts that told her that the post was an example of white privilege, how she was a horrible person for posting this photograph, how she had offended various racial minority groups. And this is the byproduct of what's being taught in our schools and the social agenda that's being pushed there. They do it in the name of tolerance, but it's really breeding a lot of intolerance. And so those are the kinds of things. There's lots of other stories like that, and I think that's the kind of story that we need to get out to the voters to let them understand that what's being taught is really, really destructive. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brendan.
Thank you to the Bartoses. I extend my gratitude as well. It's great to see so many of you here. Some of you I've saw at Liz's gathering as well, and I promise I'm not going to get pedantic like I did last time. Let me just say, so I obviously share so many of the positions that they've already articulated, Christina and Travis. I think perhaps one thing that we could sort of focus on, at least that I would want to, is a transparency, is a returning power to parents. If children are at the center of education, which they must be, parents must be as well. I think the problems arise when power gets concentrated, not diversified. And so I think if we could develop, and this is really what I want to try and do, is be more transparent. It kind of undoes that concentration of power that leads to corruption. We've seen a lot of this corruption. And if we care about our children, if we care about what they're being taught, the 360 education is wonderful. Critical race theory must be taught alongside other theories. I do think there's some value in that. I kind of echoed some of the sentiments expressed at Liz's house by others as well. Yet it should be critiqued like every other position that there is. And I think when we do that, we really value our children's education a lot more. And so transparency and availability, I know that's one of the issues that faces a lot of the school boards. The school board members themselves are not often available. I say this reluctantly, probably because I don't think I'm going to get voted, but if I do get voted on, as a professor, I try to be as available to my students as I can. And obviously none of you have had me in my classes, but I follow through on that. I make myself available to my students. I will make myself available to community members should they want to discuss any of these issues and bring these to the board. And then think with others, and really appreciating the way that the others who think differently from us think, because that's what prevents us from going to the extremes. So much of our social problem today is we're losing that community of trust and we're moving to the extremes. But one of the benefits of a two-party system, I think, is that it's designed to keep us centered. And when we lose that, we really risk unleashing all kinds of atrocities, which history has shown us, and I think that's vital. So working with our others, an ability to try and do that, being transparent, and just being available to the community, that's what I would probably want to stress above all. That's all I'm going to say.
Back to me. So a little bit of an audible. Bill asked me to make sure that Clarice comes up and says a couple of words, so I'm going to put you on the spot. But before she comes up, I just want to close out on the school board side to say this is really hard work. And what you're doing doesn't pay and is untold numbers of hours, and it is truly public service. And again, I want to just stress from all of us, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for putting yourselves out there, and it is an honor and really a privilege for all of us to support you. So, and by the way, the Democrats should be really worried because all these great people showed up in Lower Merion Township at the end of the summer to support you. This is a great sign of enthusiasm, hope, and also financial resources. So let me quick introduce Clarice. Ryan DeMara, who's our political director, said you have to meet Clarice. I did a little research. Clarice, and she'll tell you her story, more energy than almost anyone I've ever met, has read the school code from beginning to back, from front to back, and then again forward, knows it probably better than anyone in the Commonwealth, certainly better than any elected officials in the Commonwealth. I was drinking while I did that. They may have been drinking when they passed it. So, but I just want to say that, again, what we've seen over the last 7-8 months, certainly on the tail end of these shutdowns and what it galvanized for people, Clarice is exactly the type of leader who has stepped forward in the midst of so much shutdown, so much suffering, so much denial of the joys of childhood and education to our children. She stepped forward, put herself out there. She'll tell you her story. But again, I really mean it, what I said. You inspire me, you inspire other candidates because you don't have to do this. And you take a lot of grief for what you do, and it is gutsy what you do. And so I just want to introduce Clarice Schillinger, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Well, I can honestly tell you, and I've known Liz for a while, I never thought in a million years I would be standing here and telling the story of what has happened over the past year. So, as we all know, our children have suffered to the greatest extent possible with school closures. And to be honest with you all, after what I saw today from Governor Wolf, he made a statement, a clear and direct statement 3 weeks ago that he was not going to take position on masking. And 3 weeks later, he did today. So it is mandated that in every school, children have to wear masks. What my fear is, and the chairman and I were just speaking about this, what my fear is that schools will shut down again. Masking is the first step to getting there. And this is a 70 to 80% issue bipartisanly across the entire nation. This is the single issue that the candidates should be putting first and foremost and saying, no matter what, we will ensure that our children who need in-person learning to succeed have that opportunity, period. We have children who need heat, shelter, escape from abuse. Our teachers are our #1 mandated reporters in the state of Pennsylvania. We cannot forget these children who need in-person learning, but also need the building itself to protect them. We are not giving these children, the future leaders of America, a fighting chance. So, as Jeff mentioned, I did read the 1,026 pages of the school code. I might have had a glass of wine while doing that. But it is so imperative to understand that our school code allows these schools to stay closed. In fact, Section 520.1 of the school code says that schools can stay closed for up to 4 years. 4 years. That's what it says. I've been to Harrisburg around 20 times, had to register myself as a lobbyist because I was there too much. I really am just a mom that cares about my kids, that cares about every single child in the state of Pennsylvania and the nation. I saw my own kids struggle. I've had numerous parents homeless parents, their children were doing school in the back seat of the cars, right? We cannot leave these children forgotten. They're the future leaders of America. We've got to make sure that they're educated and in school. So the chairman and I are in agreement. This is a 70 to 80% bipartisan effort to keep our schools open. And if we do not get people out on this single issue, it's like peeling back the layer, right, of the onion. So a lot of parents are going to school board meetings complaining about masking and vaxxing and CRT, and I get it. I get it. Don't stop doing that. But the real issue is we're going to these school boards, the same ones that shut our schools down for 18 months, and expecting them to listen or change with us. So really telling our voters, you got to come out. You got to save our schools on November 2nd. It is critical to our future generation. That's what I got.
And she's being incredibly modest. She has raised 7 figures. Let me state that again. She has raised 7 figures to help support school board candidates across all 67 counties and across all 500 school districts. So it's pretty amazing. As someone who spends his day raising money, I can tell you, that's why I say, I mean, it's really amazing, Clarice, what you've done. Okay, so with that, the second most important thing I can say besides get out and vote and keep supporting our school board candidates is please, please, please come in the house and drink and eat, because otherwise you're all going to have to come back tomorrow and the next day because we have way too much food. But with that, I just want to say, sincerely, having done politics here in Lower Merion for over 20 years, this is incredible. It's a great turnout. Your energy is amazing. We have a great, great, great slate, and judicial candidates and school board candidates are going to lead us forward through 2021 and into 2022. Thank you so much for being here tonight.